Rules and conventions are there in photography for a good reason. They help us to assess a scene and come up with something that will be pleasing to our viewer. However, rules are there to be challenged, and I'm going to take this scene in the background and look at how by breaking one or two of those conventions I can change its narrative. First things first, let's take a look at this subject. Turn on your camera. This is what you see. It's a little bit wide. There's a lot of distractions in there. So just punching into my 2x lens and it's a lot cleaner. Now, we've got my rule of thirds. I've got my grid lines on here and I can see my character is nicely aligned with the right-hand grid line. And this brings in one of the conventions, if you like, of still and moving images really. If you've got a character looking in a direction, then you have that space free in front of them. As a viewer, we want to see what it is our character is looking at. So that is a conventional way of taking that image. Let's just change things up ever so slightly by going vertically. Now, looking down the middle, actually, that art fits beautifully between my middle grid lines, but it's a real choice to have it aligned in the middle there. So first of all, let's just, again, use that rule of thirds, push in a little bit perhaps. I'm just going to actually frame in a little bit as well with a bit of the digital zoom and just get her looking across the frame. There we go, that's another conventional take on that. We're seeing where she's looking, but rules are there to be broken. What happens? Oh yes. So if I put her on the other side instead, we now don't have that looking room, and instead as a viewer, I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable. I can't see what it is she's looking at. So there's a real choice that we're making there. And now rather than looking at something, she's got her back turned away from something instead. And that all becomes part of the narrative of these images. And that is what I want to take a look at when I review them right now. Here is the conventional take on this shot. We've gone for a landscape, a horizontal view, and we can see our subject looking across these buildings. She's very much on the kind of third lines on the right hand side there, and the other 2/3 of the image are the looking space. It's what she is looking at. It's a conventional take on this image. It's fine. Things that I might like to do to improve it include maybe just elevating my position either on a ladder or something, just so that I can get a little bit closer to her eye line, but otherwise it's fine. By punching in a little bit closer and turning the phone into a vertical orientation, we see more of the detail on her face, and that's brought out a lot more of the drama. We can tell that there's a story here. She looks a bit upset. Why is that? Well, we don't necessarily know. The framing maybe could be improved. I've just cropped the bird above. I'm not so fussed about that, but otherwise this does follow the conventions. She's more or less on that right-hand third. The other 2/3 again is the looking room. She's definitely looking over these blocks of flats. So yeah, I think we've elevated the story there while still sticking in the conventions. This frame is very interesting. What we've done is to break one of the conventions of looking room here. Our subject is now looking off frame, and as a viewer that makes me feel quite uncomfortable. I don't know what it is that she's looking at, but what it's also doing now is maybe changing the story. We're now seeing on this side of the image what is behind her. Is she turning her back on what's been happening in these buildings here? We don't know. But by understanding the conventions, understanding the rules, and then making a positive choice to change them, we're creating a drama of our own. And we've been able to take a look at some different ways of framing this up, yet creating two entirely different narratives within them.